In fact, so you all remember that little diagram of foothills. You know, this is not easy. Let's see. Tenure at R1 institution, salary schedule for professorships. They don't really do a good job of, highlighting. A lot of this is behind closed doors, which is, I think, on purpose. Yeah. So at some point, I actually have found the tenure documentation for any, selection of schools that actually share it. So there's like 5, if you ever see the words assistant professor, that means pre-tenure. So they haven't gotten tenure yet. And there's at an R1 institution like UC Davis, there's 5 stages of assistant professor, usually associate 5 or 6, because it actually takes like 5 or 6 years to get a professorship. And then there's 7 stages of what they call associate professor. And each stage is usually associated with a year in grade. So you spend 5 years as an assistant professor, 7 years as an associate professor, and then you move into full professorship. And then at UC Davis, for example, there's like 13 stages of full professorship. Each one is a bump up in salary. So let's say you start as assistant professor at $70,000 a year. The next year you go to 73, you're assistant professor 2, assistant professor 3, assistant professor 4, assistant professor 5. At that point you do, it's pretty crazy how the tenure process works. So they'll do, so the UC-CSU's community college, the research versus teaching allocation goes like this. At the UC, it's 80% research, 20% teaching. That's actually written into the tenure bylaws. At the CSUs, it's 20% teaching, 20% research, 80% teaching. And at the community college, it's 0% research, 100% teaching. But effectively, like at San Jose State, it's more like 50-50, even though formally it says 20-80. San Jose State is in the heart of Silicon Valley, and it's a really, really kind of beautiful place to be. And so if you look at the people at San Jose State, their research, they could get R1 institution at R1 positions at less competitive locations like UC Merced and UC Irvine. Those are starting to become very, very competitive recently. But if you were to look like 10, 15 years back, they were trying to build those, and a lot of the top quality people are not going to want to go to Merced or Irvine before the those flagship institutions go up, right? Mm-hmm. So some of the people at San Jose State, and the same thing's true for SF State, and there are some state schools around the nation that are really, really strong in that way. And if you look at those scholars, they're on the same caliber as what you would expect at a less competitive R1 institution. And then if you look at like UC Davis or UC Berkeley, for sure this is true. They say that it's 80-20, but it's more like 99.91 if they can get away with it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where, and that's why, so like